The humble Lootbug, renowned on Hoxes for their adorable demeanor as well as their lucrative taste for minerals. These gentle creatures have no natural enemies and as a result are generally trusting. Lootbugs can be found on all areas of Hoxes, except on escort duty missions. This is suspected to be related to the presence of the Amoran Heartstone, but an exact reason has not been confirmed. Lootbugs spawn during level generation and do not respawn during the mission. Because of the way they are spawned, they are notably more clustered on on-site refining missions, where there is a much more open area. Lootbugs are spawned with 100 health and a randomly determined amount of gold and nitro which they keep in an internal total. Golden Lootbugs notably spawn with no nitro but significantly more gold in their total. Lootbugs are attracted to mineral chunks and will attempt to move towards them so that they can eat them. Minerals that are eaten are added to the Lootbug's total with a x 1.5 multiplier. The Lootbug's total can be interacted with by 3 different methods. Petting the Lootbug has a chance to cause the Lootbug to drop a mineral chunk from the total. Whenever the Lootbug takes damage, they can also drop mineral chunks from the total. On death, all minerals in the Lootbug's total are dropped. For anyone simply looking for the most optimal way to get resources from Lootbugs, killing them will always be the fastest and most efficient method. A perk exists to expedite this process. It's a bug thing will kill any Lootbugs that come within a certain radius of the player, causing them to drop their resources on death. This radius is 2 meters at level 1 and 5 meters at level 2. That said, many dwarfs, myself included, find it shameful to kill Lootbugs on purpose, being one of the most trusting passive creatures to be found on Hoxes. For these players, I will be presenting my findings on how to interact with and even farm Lootbugs without killing them. For starters, in many cases, gathering the resources that Lootbugs provide is entirely unnecessary and the cave deposits provide all the minerals we need. For these times it may be best to just pet the Lootbugs as you pass by. The small amount of gold or nitra that can gain from this is small, but can be mildly helpful in a pinch if you're just a bit short for a resupply. This will be enough for the typical dwarf, but for more advanced techniques we will be looking at the lithophage outbreak modifier. On mission types with the lithophage outbreak modifier, dwarfs must call down cleaning equipment to cleanse the outbreaks. From this comes an interesting mechanic with the lithofoamer. The lithofoamer deals only 1 damage per shot. Because Lootbugs can drop some of their minerals anytime they take damage, this allows us to remove all the resources from a Lootbug's total while doing relatively little harm. This technique on its own is very simple and easy to implement for most miners, but I've further refined it for those who would like to achieve the ultimate claim, the Lootbug farm. The original notion of a Lootbug farm is based on the idea that when Lootbugs eat minerals they multiply them by 1.5, allowing for the infinite multiplication of resources. However, getting Lootbugs to eat minerals is a slow and tedious process that has not been able to be replicated reliably. Instead, I have developed a much faster method that allows for Lootbugs to drop more minerals as well as healing them in the process. For this technique, a lithophage outbreak mission is suggested, but I'll get into some more advanced techniques later in this video. Select any mission type except escort duty, preferably in a relatively safe biome, as Lootbugs don't have a very good sense of self-preservation. On-site refining is especially good because of the way it spawns Lootbugs. When you get into the mission, the first thing you're going to want to do is find the lithophage and call down the cleaning pod. From here it is recommended to cleanse all of the lithophage outbreaks before moving on, but it is not required. Next, grab the lithofoamer and find some Lootbugs, the more the better. Use the lithofoamer to extract the minerals from these Lootbugs. It may be advisable to not pick up all of the minerals dropped to encourage the Lootbugs to stay in place. An indent in the terrain can also help to contain the minerals. An easy indent to find on every mission is the one left by the drop pod. Next, move far away from the Lootbugs. The exact distance is still being tested but is suspected to be related to how the game loads areas, so going to another cave is advised. To save time, you can bring a separate lithofoamer to this location and use it on Lootbugs in this area as well. Return to your original colony. If you've gone far enough away, the Lootbug's health will have been restored, letting you know they are ready to be washed once more. To grow the colonies, it's advised to leave some minerals on the ground as they will attract more Lootbugs to that location. You can continue moving between caves and collecting resources from the Lootbugs as long as you can keep them alive for. I like to call this shepherding the Lootbugs. Even when leaving excess minerals on the ground, the Lootbugs will drift over time. If you are playing engineer, you could try to make them an enclosure to prevent this. Otherwise, be sure you have some way to reach higher up areas if the Lootbugs choose to migrate there. Using this technique can net you massive amounts of gold and nitra over time for your efforts as one of few Lootbug shepherds in the caves of Hoxas. This can help for if you like to mess around with longer missions or do anything that requires a larger amount of nitra than is naturally found in the caves of Hoxas. However, since this technique is heavily dependent on the lithophage outbreak modifier, an alternative method has been engineered. For this method, the driller class is used for its access to weapons with relatively low damage outputs. These will be needed to replace the role of the lithofoamer. The two methods you can use with driller are washing and scrubbing the Lootbug respectively. For washing, you will need the cryo cannon. Set up the mods so that neither damage or rate of fire are increased. This will allow for a damage output of 6 at a rate of 8 per second. Similarly, the use of scrubbing or the drills can be used. When using the drills, simply do not increase the damage and they will give you a damage output of 5 also at a rate of 8 per second. Both of these methods will require for you to keep a close eye on the health bar of the Lootbug, as they can kill them if not used carefully. Though both of these options feel notably crueler than the lithofoamer method, should the lithophage outbreak modifier be unavailable, they both serve as a viable alternative. It should be noted that this video was made as of May 13, 2023. As Deep Rock is frequently updated, some of these features could become outdated, at which point I'll update the title of the video and be looking for even more unique Lootbug mechanics. Until then, no matter how you play the game, rock and stone miners.